Hey there. Welcome back to Life Hacks After 50. Simple daily habits can make a huge difference in how we look and feel. That's what this channel is all about. Before we dive in, do me a favor. Like, follow, and share this video. It helps the channel grow. Also, quick shout out to my ebook, Life by Noon, 5 Steps to Noon Transformation. It's my go-to morning routine for boosting health, energy, and vitality, all before noon. I'm 60 and going strong, and you can too. Grab your copy through the link in the description. If you're enjoying this podcast, consider supporting us with a small donation. It really helps us keep going. See the link in the description or bio. Now, let's get started.
Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. Today we're going to be tackling something I think a lot of people kind of shy away from talking about, which is the emotional side of being scammed.
Yeah.
And we talk a lot about the mechanics of scams, how to avoid them, what to do if you get caught in one.
Right.
But we don't often really dig into the emotional impact.
The feelings.
Yeah, and how that can really linger, and it can be just as damaging as the financial losses themselves.
Absolutely.
So we've got a couple of sources today to help us kind of unpack all of this. We're looking at a YouTube channel called Life Hacks After 50.
Okay.
And they have this great piece called The Emotional Impact of Being Scammed and How to Heal. So we're going to be kind of pulling from that today.
Great.
And I think this might feel a little bit heavy at times, but I promise you're going to come away with some really good knowledge, some really valuable resources.
Absolutely.
And hopefully maybe even a sense of empowerment.
Yes.
Because knowledge is power, as they say.
I'm here to help unpack all the psychology of scams and also to offer some concrete strategies to help you cope and recover.
I love it. Okay, so let's dive right in.
Okay.
One thing that really jumped out at me when I was looking at this Life Hacks After 50 stuff was just the sheer intensity of the emotions.
Whoa, yeah.
That victims experience. We're talking about shame,
Yeah.
anger, fear,
Yeah.
even depression in some cases. It's a real emotional roller coaster. Why do you think these reactions are so common?
Well, you have to remember that scammers are master manipulators.
Yeah.
They're so good at what they do, and they strategically target vulnerabilities.
Right.
And especially they're looking for people who are more trusting. So, I mean, think about a lot of people in this age group, were raised in a time when a handshake was as good as a contract.
Oh, absolutely.
And so there's that inherent belief in honesty.
Right.
And then you add to that, maybe some financial concerns that can come later in life. It just creates this perfect storm for these predators.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking because I think, for folks who are maybe on a fixed income,
Right.
losing even a small amount of money can feel devastating.
Absolutely.
And then there's that added layer of betrayal. It's like the foundation of your world is shaken a little bit.
Yes, and it can be very disorienting. And, I just want to reemphasize that being scammed is not a sign of weakness
Right.
or stupidity.
Yeah.
It's just a testament to how sophisticated these tactics are.
Yeah.
These criminals, they use something called social engineering.
Social engineering.
Yes.
That sounds very official.
It is, and it's basically manipulating people into divulging personal information or taking actions that benefit the scammer.
Okay, so like if somebody calls me up and says, your computer's infected, you need to give me remote access right now.
Big red flag.
That's social engineering.
Huge red flag, and legitimate tech support companies do not operate like that.
Got it.
If you ever get a call like that, hang up immediately and contact your security software provider directly.
Okay. That's a great tip. And honestly, that's something I'm going to share with my family right away.
Yeah.
It's like community immunity against scams.
Exactly.
The more we know and the more we share, the better we can protect ourselves and those around us.
Yes, exactly like getting a vaccine, you're creating that herd immunity effect where we're collectively more resistant to their tricks.
I love that analogy.
Yes.
But let's face it, even with all the knowledge in the world, sometimes these scams are so convincing.
Oh, yeah.
That people do fall victim. And then those feelings of shame and guilt come flooding in. What's your advice for dealing with that emotional fallout?
Yeah. It's totally natural, to feel overwhelmed after being scammed like that.
Yeah.
And I think the first step is just to acknowledge those feelings and just, be kind to yourself. You're not alone.
Right.
This happens to millions of people every year, even the most cautious among us.
Yeah, I think we need to reframe our thinking a little bit. Instead of blaming ourselves.
Yes.
Let's channel that energy into action.
Exactly.
Right.
One of the most empowering things you can do is to report the scam.
Okay.
It might feel like a small step,
Yeah.
but it can make a really big difference.
But where do we even start? Like, who do we report these things to?
Well, there are a few key resources.
Okay.
You can file a complaint with the Federal Trade Commission, FTC, online, and their website is reportfraud.ftc.gov.
Right.
They track scam trends, and they can actually take action against fraudulent companies.
Got it. The FTC.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What about scams that are, specifically targeting seniors?
Right.
I know AARP does a lot of work in that area.
Yes, they do.
Right.
The AARP Fraud Watch Network is a fantastic resource.
Okay.
They have a helpline you can call to report scams, get advice on how to protect yourself.
Awesome.
Plus, they have tons of information on their website about common scams that are targeting older adults.
That's like having a personal bodyguard against scammers.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Also, if you've experienced any kind of financial losses due to a scam, reporting it to your local police department is also really important. They might be able to help you recover some of your funds.
Right.
And their reports contribute to larger investigations.
Got it. So we've got the FTC, we've got AARP, we've got local law enforcement.
Yes.
Okay, that's a good starting point.
Mm-hmm.
But what about actually securing our finances,
Right.
Are there steps that we can take to kind of minimize the damage?
Absolutely. So if you suspect that your bank accounts have been compromised, contact your bank immediately.
Okay.
And report the fraud. They can help you freeze your accounts and issue new cards.
Got it. And I imagine changing passwords is crucial too.
Absolutely.
Right. Not just for banking, but for any online accounts.
Yes. Make sure you're using strong, unique passwords for all your online accounts.
Right.
And enable two-factor authentication whenever possible.
Two-factor authentication.
Yes.
Always a good idea.
It's that extra layer of security that can really make a world of difference.
So we're taking action. We're reporting the scam. We're securing our accounts.
Yes.
It sounds like regaining a sense of control.
Yes.
Is a really vital part of the healing process.
You've hit the nail on the head.
Okay.
Taking those concrete steps can really help shift your mindset from feeling helpless to feeling empowered.
Right.
You're not just sitting back letting this happen to you.
Right.
You're taking charge and you're fighting back.
And speaking of fighting back, I've heard that sharing your story can be helpful too.
Absolutely.
Even if it feels a little embarrassing at first.
Yes. Talking to someone you trust,
a
friend, family member, a therapist, or even joining a support group can be incredibly therapeutic. It helps release that shame.
Right.
And it allows you to process those difficult emotions in a safe and supportive environment.
It's like that saying, a problem shared is a problem halved. It's amazing how simply talking about something can just lighten the load. But what about, for folks who might be struggling to open up, are there resources available for them?
There are some fantastic resources out there.
Okay.
The AARP Fraud Support Network, which I mentioned earlier, offers peer support groups where you can connect with others who have gone through similar experiences.
I bet that sense of community is so valuable.
Absolutely.
Just knowing you're not alone can make a world of difference.
Yes. And if you're looking for some more professional guidance, platforms like BetterHelp offer online counseling services. It's a really convenient and confidential way to access support from licensed therapists who understand the emotional impact of scams.
So we've got support groups, we've got online counseling.
Yes.
There really are options out there for everyone. But even with all of these resources, it still feels like there's this lingering impact.
Yes.
Something that goes beyond just the practical and the emotional,
Right. There's a ripple effect.
Yeah.
That extends to families and communities.
Yeah.
Scams can create a climate of fear and mistrust.
Right.
Which leads to tension and disagreements, especially when it comes to finances and decision-making.
It's like a breach of trust, within families.
Yes.
Even though it's the scammer who's truly at fault, how do we even begin to repair that damage? Yeah, it's like they throw this grenade into the family, and even though it's their fault, everybody kind of gets caught in the blast.
Yeah, that's a really powerful way to put it. And you're right, it can be so difficult to navigate, those feelings of anger and frustration, even resentment can come up.
So how do we start to rebuild that trust?
Well,
is it just a matter of time, or is there something more proactive we can do?
Open communication is key.
Okay.
Create a safe space for family members to express their feelings without judgment, remembering that everyone copes differently. And it's important to validate each other's experiences.
It's like acknowledging the hurt without, you know, dwelling on the blame.
Exactly.
But sometimes, especially when it comes to older relatives,
Yeah.
there's this reluctance to even talk about it.
Right.
It's like they're ashamed to admit that they were tricked.
Yeah, and that's where empathy and understanding come in.
Yeah.
Remind them that they're not alone.
Right.
That anyone can fall victim to these scams.
Mm.
Sharing our own experiences or stories of other people who
Yeah.
have been through similar situations can really help to normalize the conversation.
Right.
And reduce that stigma.
It's like taking the shame out of the equation.
Exactly.
And replacing it with compassion and support.
Yes.
And it's not just about families, right? You mentioned earlier that scams can have this ripple effect on entire communities.
Absolutely.
Right.
When people are afraid of being scammed, they become more hesitant to trust others, to engage in activities, or even to help those in need. And this can lead to social isolation and a decline in overall well-being.
It's almost like this virus spreading mistrust and fear.
Yes.
So how do we combat that? How do we create a more resilient community?
It starts with awareness and education.
Okay.
The more we talk about scams,
Yeah.
the more we share information and resources, the more empowered our communities become.
It's like we're building this collective defense system.
Exactly.
Right? And just like with physical health, prevention is key.
Absolutely.
Right.
Encourage your neighbors, your friends, community groups to stay informed about common scam tactics. Share the resources that we've talked about today. The FTC website, the AARP Fraud Watch Network,
Right.
local law enforcement agencies. Knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And by spreading that knowledge, we can create a safer environment for everyone.
This has been such an enlightening conversation. I feel like we've really gone deep into the emotional impact of scams. From the individual level
Yes.
all the way to the broader societal effects.
Yes, and I hope our listeners are walking away with not only a better understanding of this issue, but also a sense of empowerment.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You're not alone.
Right.
There are resources available to help you navigate these challenges.
So before we wrap up, what's one key takeaway that you want to leave our listeners with today?
Awareness, action, and connection.
Okay.
Be aware of the tactics that scammers use. Take action to protect yourself and others, and connect with your loved ones and your community. Together, we can make a difference.
That's such a powerful message. Awareness, action, and connection. 3 pillars of resilience in the face of scams. And on that note, I want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the emotional side of scams. It can be a tough topic, but it's so important to talk about it. And remember, knowledge is power. So the more we know, the better equipped we are to protect ourselves and our loved ones. So until next time, stay informed, stay connected, and stay safe.